What's going on, guys? In this video we're going to be going over some more so principles than techniques. And I know a lot of these videos that I have been putting out lately are just straight up techniques or tutorials, but when it comes to this particular topic that we're about to go through, it becomes very gray, and I'm sure a lot of people have different opinions about it. So I'm not going to be here to tell you what's right or what's wrong. I'm just going to simply show you the principle in which we kind of attack the situation via the bias stress models philosophy, as well as my own kind of personal philosophy. So my partner James is using a knife that is going to allow us to pressure test a little bit. Now I am going to go a little bit slower so I can break down more clearly, but one of the things that this is going to allow me to do is it's going to isolate and emphasize one of the principles later on. So I'll talk about that in a bit, but we're just going to work off of a standard thrust. And in bias stress models philosophy, very generic, there are 3 stages of controlling or defending yourself. The first one is going to be control. So off this thrust, once I find an angle, I want to be able to control this some way, somehow. Whether it be double under, over under, whether it be passing it off, changing the angle, whatever it might be, I want to be able to control that position. Okay? And remember, Filipino martial arts is all about flow. So if I decide to do that route and I decide to control from here, the next part is if I can't continue to control from this position, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break. So breaking is the section that most people know it as defanging the snake. So that could be by hyperextending the arm, that could be by taking away the knife itself from the hand, making sure that this aggression vanishes pretty much. Okay, so I decide to try to control, that doesn't work. I decide to break, that doesn't work. Then finally, we look for the elimination, which can be a series of strikes. If you have a weapon, you can strike back with it. And then, of course, upon success of elimination, there goes the threat. So you can look at that in a few ways, of course, because there's so many ways you can control. There's so many options on how you want to classify your break. Is it going to be, the actual fang? Is it going to be the base? Is it going to be the foot? So on and so forth. But the thing that's going to separate that from elimination is you're not going to look for those vital hits. If you wanted to skip the point of breaking and go straight to elimination, you would go for vitals like the head, the eyes, the heart, things that are going to be a little bit more vital when you attack them, especially with a weapon. And the reason why it progresses that way is because, yes, in Filipino martial arts, it derives from a concept where if you strike me, I'm going to strike your hand, or if you try to cut me, I'm going to cut your head off. And everybody knows that, but you can't just train that particular scenario because, for a lot of us in the world that we live in, and especially here in Canada, there are rules and laws to abide by. So just because you decide to attack me doesn't necessarily give me the right to kill you, right? And at the end of the day, our goals as martial artists, as human beings, is to hold ourselves kind of at a higher place to be able to make sense of a situation and hopefully de-escalate at a control stage, whether physical or verbal, in order to avoid any unnecessary fighting. The last thing I want to do is let him stab me, or at least to attempt to stab me, and then engage if I don't need to, right? When there is a point in time where, of course, you're going to have to engage, and when you do engage, commit to it, but if I can avoid that, why not, right? Martial arts isn't just punching, kicking. Martial arts with weaponry isn't just cutting, stabbing, blocking. It's about understanding your situation and analyzing your environment. So that is pretty generic, and what I've kind of refined that to is a little bit more of a longer process so that you can start to understand things to look for, or at least generic principles to follow when you're in one of these situations. So the first one that we're going to look at is what we call preservation. Preservation is protecting my life. So this is in the event that my opponent is riled up, I want to preserve my life by potentially not engaging at all. But if we're looking specifically at engaging where my partner, or my opponent rather, decides to attack me, I need to preserve my life. So I'm not looking for control right away. I'm not looking for disarms. I'm not looking for counter offense. All I want to do is make sure that I don't die, that I don't get hurt. Okay, because of course, immediately after, I'm going to look to control. Okay, but I can't do anything if I get hurt. I can't do it at 100% at least, right? So if he decides to stab me first, and then from this point in time now, I'm gonna start to try to control and stuff, then I could potentially die, right? So whether that be a knife or an empty hand, I don't want to get hit first. I want to make sure I can think straight. I want to make sure that I can assess the situation correctly, and then I can go ahead and follow the next steps. So preservation simply could just be parrying it out. It could be stepping back. It could be stepping 45. If you think more Kali, that is just simply detaching yourself from the situation, making sure that you don't get hurt. Now, if we look at the flowing sequence one more time, our second step is going to be position. And so I'm a very firm believer in fundamentals and basics. I don't need complicated techniques to be able to protect myself. So once I preserve myself, now I have to understand the position that I need in relation to my opponent to make sure that this is going to be able to flow into the next step. Without my position, and oftentimes in jiu-jitsu, a lot of people say position before submission, my position is going to dictate the options that I have. So if I did go on the inside like this, my position is going to tell me what can I do from here to control. And what is also going to be a factor in probably me failing if my back is facing James's left arm here. So if I turn, you see this position I just got, this position I can start to analyze what good is here, what bad is here. So if this position isn't what I want, then I can flow to another position where I might have more confidence, where I might have more tools in the toolbox. And then from here, I can begin my next part. Okay, so your position in Kali can simply be inside angle, outside angle. It could also be in relation to where the knife is, where the attack is coming from, as well as in regards to your environment. Do you want to be on the inside? Do you want to be on the outside? Are they attacking with the right hand or the left hand? Is it a forehand strike or is it a backhand strike? So those are kind of the principal things to look for, and in those principles, they come in all shapes and sizes. So we have preservation, we have position. Okay, now what we're going to look for is we're going to look for the control. Now that I have the dominant position and I know I can work from here, now I can start to control. I can do a 2-on-1, arm bar, so on and so forth. And basically I want to be able to pin them. I want to be able to secure the threat. I want to make sure that I stay in a dominant position and my partner or my opponent is in a submissive position. Once I have that, what I've done is I've increased my distance in the playing field. I've climbed the ladder to where before James can do anything to harm me, he's got to bring a neutral playing field back into play. So he's got to do something to either get rid of me holding his arm, he's got to fix his posture, he's got to switch his hands, draw another weapon, something where he has to do that while I'm in complete control and I have a better ability to assess the situation. And from all of that, now is where what we call the domination section. This is the very last section. And so you don't need to dominate in order to control, right? When I talk about domination, I'm talking about adding in all my disarming techniques, adding in all of my strikes and whatnot. So we're using the cert knife, which is very floppy at the end. So a lot of the times when you use, those metal trainers, you're very, very consumed about, ooh, let me get here, then let me get the disarm. What happens if the knife is too small? What happens if, your adrenaline kicks in too much? Do you even want to go to the knife here? What if you fail a disarm? Right? Those are all things that are kind of the icing on the cake in my eyes. I should be able to protect myself at the very least here without having to disarm him. I don't have to take this in order to sweep him. I don't have to take this in order to break this arm, in order to hit him, in order to translate this into a different technique. Maybe I go to return to sender, whatever the concept might be. But I don't necessarily have to disarm, right? So although I personally view Kali as an offensive art, a counter-offensive art, there's still a lot of defense in it. It's just your approach to doing it. And ultimately, Kali to me is a vessel where it teaches me how to analyze and see combat or interactions in different perspectives. And not just Kali has influenced that, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has influenced that. My time in other arts and around other martial arts instructors have influenced that as well. And there are many different ways you can look at this, so I don't want to tell you guys again that this is the right technique versus that. Everyone has good techniques. I'm a firm believer in the application of fundamentals, but at that rate, having a simple guideline of principles helps filter out things that you might not necessarily need to do versus things that you want to do. And in a situation of self-defense and self-preservation, I would prefer people look at the things you need to do, because want is what you can do in class with a training partner in the gym. So those are kind of the outlines, and I just use a small amount of technique to be able to demonstrate those processes. If you guys want to try at home with your training partners or at the gym, write down these steps of the principles in order, and then you can start filling in and try to see what fits in where and see how you can link them together to create one steady, constant flow where you're not kind of struggling to get to the next point. It's almost effortless, and it's going to be in that particular position that you set up. So if you guys did enjoy this video, if you guys learned a little bit about the principles that I use for knife defense, and not just knife defense, actually self-defense in general, make sure you comment below and let me know what process you might use. Let me know what other things I might have missed. And if you guys do want to see more on this, a little bit more application, make sure you guys comment as well so I can make a separate video. We have a lot of big things coming your way, and I'm super excited to share it with you guys, but I'm just putting in the finishing touches, so bear with me. I appreciate you guys watching. Thumbs up if you did enjoy the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, catch you guys then.